You saw me naked, human. Now we must wed before it's too late. A violet exposure. The crystalline spires of New Zephyria glittered in the twin moonlight as Nira Vielle completed her preparations for the solitude ritual. As the youngest senior diplomat in the Interplanetary Alliance, she took her cultural obligations seriously. Her purple skin shimmered with ceremonial oils as she carefully arranged the sacred stones in a perfect circle within her private sanctuary garden. Zephyrians held privacy as their most sacred value. Their society functioned on elaborate systems of permission and disclosure, with the solitude ritual being the most intimate practice, a monthly meditation performed without coverings to symbolically shed barriers between oneself and the cosmos. To witness another during this ritual without invitation was the gravest violation imaginable. Stars guide my thoughts. Moons illuminate my purpose, Nira whispered, kneeling in the center of the stone circle. Her violet skin caught the moonlight, creating a subtle glow around her slender form as she closed her eyes. Mason Reed had only been on New Zephyria for 3 standard weeks. As Earth's most promising cultural anthropologist, he'd been granted unprecedented access to study Zephyrian customs, though many remained off-limits to outsiders. His fascination with their complex social structures had already filled several journals. That evening, tracking a rare nocturnal butterfly for his biodiversity notes, Mason followed the iridescent creature over a garden wall without realizing he'd entered a private estate. The butterfly led him through a maze of exotic flora, until he emerged into a small clearing ringed by luminescent stones. In the center knelt a Zephyrian woman, her purple skin radiant in the moonlight, completely absorbed in what was clearly a deeply personal ritual. Mason froze, immediately recognizing his terrible mistake. He tried to step back quietly, but his elbow brushed against a chiming plant, sending a delicate musical note through the night air. Nira's eyes snapped open. For 3 heartbeats they stared at each other in absolute silence. Then her expression transformed from serenity to horror. "Invader," she gasped, quickly wrapping herself in a nearby ceremonial cloth. "How dare you violate the sanctity of solitude?" Mason raised his hands apologetically. "I'm so sorry, I was following a butterfly for my research. I had no idea this was a private space. I'll leave immediately." "It's too late," Nira said, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and something else. "Fear. You've witnessed the solitude. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I apologize sincerely for the cultural offense," Mason said, keeping his eyes respectfully averted now. "Please tell me how I can make amends." Nira's breathing steadied as she secured the ceremonial cloth around her body. When she spoke again, her voice had taken on a formal tone that Mason recognized from diplomatic broadcasts. "In witnessing me in solitude, you have created an unbreakable bond. By our oldest laws, we are now soul-tethered." She looked at him with piercing amber eyes. "According to ancient tradition, we must complete the union ceremony before the next alignment of the moons, or face eternal separation from our respective societies." Mason's anthropological training hadn't prepared him for this. "Union ceremony? You mean what humans would call marriage," Nira confirmed grimly. "And before you suggest ignoring the tradition, know that I am a representative of my people. My actions reflect on all Zephyria. I cannot dismiss our ways merely because the other party is an off-worlder." As the implications settled over them, a distant alarm began to sound from the diplomatic quarter. Someone had detected an unauthorized presence near a diplomat's residence. Soon the garden would be swarming with security personnel. "They're coming," Nira whispered, suddenly looking vulnerable despite her formal tone. "You need to understand, this isn't just about me. If we don't follow tradition, the diplomatic consequences could affect relations between our worlds for generations." Mason nodded slowly, his researcher's mind already cataloging the cultural significance even as his personal thoughts whirled in confusion. "Tell me what to do right now and we'll figure out the rest later." A flash of surprise crossed Nira's face at his quick acceptance. She pointed to a small gap in the hedge. "Meet me tomorrow at the Stellar Archives. We have much to discuss before others learn of this." As Mason slipped away into the night, the weight of what had just happened settled over him. In pursuing knowledge, he had unwittingly entangled himself in the most binding of Zephyrian traditions, with a woman whose violet skin now seemed imprinted on his memory. Cultural constellations. 5 days had passed since the incident in Nira's garden. and Mason found himself standing in the central observatory of New Zephyria, awaiting Nira's arrival for their third harmony trial. Their daily meetings had gradually shifted from tense necessity to something approaching companionship, though neither would admit it openly. The second trial had tested their physical coordination through an ancient Zephyrian dance that required perfect synchronization. To both their surprise, they had performed remarkably well, their movements flowing together as if they'd practiced for years rather than hours. "You're early." Nira's voice came from behind him. Today she wore simpler attire than her diplomatic uniforms, her violet skin complemented by deep blue fabrics that reminded Mason of Earth's night sky. "I wanted to see the observatory without the usual crowds," he admitted. "It's breathtaking." The dome above them displayed Zephyria's solar system in stunning detail, stars and planets swirling in scientifically accurate yet artistically rendered movements. Nira smiled, a genuine expression that had become more frequent in recent days. "The third trial is about perspective," she explained, activating a control panel. "Understanding how the other sees the universe." The display shifted, showing two different planetary systems side by side, Earth's and Zephyria's. "Today we exchange worldviews," Nira continued. "I will show you how Zephyrians understand the cosmos, and you will show me the human perspective." For hours, they shared the stories their peoples told about the stars. Mason described Greek constellations, Aboriginal Dreamtime narratives, and Chinese celestial traditions. Nira revealed how Zephyrians saw their purple sun as the heart of a cosmic guardian, and their dual moons as ancient lovers forever circling each other. "It's fascinating," Mason said as they created a shared star map. "Our species evolved on completely different worlds, yet we both look to the stars for meaning." "Perhaps that's why space diplomacy works at all," Nira replied, her fingers tracing a constellation. "Beneath our differences, we share a fundamental need to make sense of our place in the universe." As their hands worked together on the holographic display, Nira paused. "The council meeting didn't go well. Tavik's faction is gaining support for their argument that our traditions are being diluted by off-worlder influence." "Is there anything I can do?" Mason asked. Nira hesitated before answering. "Actually, yes. Tomorrow evening there's a diplomatic reception. Your presence beside me would show that we're taking this union seriously." "Of course I'll come," Mason said without hesitation. The following evening, Mason arrived at the Celestial Hall wearing formal attire designed by Nira's cultural advisor, a harmonious blend of Earth and Zephyrian styles. When Nira appeared in traditional union preliminary garments, whispers immediately spread throughout the gathered diplomats. "You look..." Mason searched for adequate words. "Like you belong among the stars themselves." A faint purple blush colored Nira's cheeks. "Careful with such poetic language, anthropologist. On Zephyria, words carry power." They moved through the reception together, navigating political undercurrents with growing synchronicity. When Tavik approached with several council members, the tension was palpable. "I understand congratulations are in order," Tavik said with barely concealed disdain, though many wonder if a human can truly comprehend the sacred nature of our union traditions. Before Nira could respond diplomatically, Mason spoke. "The harmony trials have taught me that true understanding goes beyond comprehension. It requires experience, empathy, and openness to transformation." He glanced at Nira. "I may not have been born to your traditions, but I honor their purpose and wisdom." The sincerity in his voice seemed to catch even Tavik off guard. After the council members departed, Nira led Mason onto a private balcony overlooking the city's crystal spires. "That was unexpectedly perfect," she said. "Where did you learn to navigate Zephyrian political discourse so effectively?" Mason smiled. "I've been studying your cultural texts every night, but mostly I've been watching you." Something shifted in Nira's expression, a vulnerability she rarely showed in public. "The final trial is tomorrow. The trial of touch, it's traditionally the most intimate." "I understand," Mason said softly. "Do you?" Nira asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The trial of touch requires complete trust. Many bonded Zephyrians fail it even after years together." Mason took a chance and gently touched her hand. The now familiar warmth spread between them, but with greater intensity than before. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that these trials have become more than obligation to me. Nira didn't pull away. Instead, she intertwined her fingers with his, a gesture that would scandalize traditional Zephyrians outside of a union context. To me as well, she admitted. And that terrifies me more than failing. As they stood together under Zephyria's twin moons, the city lights reflecting off Nira's purple skin, Mason realized he was no longer just going through the motions to avoid diplomatic catastrophe. Somewhere between the rituals and shared revelations, he had developed genuine feelings for this complex, brilliant woman from another world. The question that hung unspoken between them was whether those feelings would be enough to pass the final trial and to face whatever came after. Whispered rebellion, the Chamber of Unity was ancient, predating even the founding of New Zephyria's diplomatic corps. Crystalline walls shifted through shades of purple and blue, responding to the emotions of those within. As Mason entered for the final harmony trial, he noted how the walls darkened to a deep violet, reflecting his nervous anticipation. Nira waited at the center, seated on a cushion before a small altar bearing ceremonial items. Her formal robes were simpler today, designed for the sacred intimacy of the trial of touch. When she looked up, Mason saw his own uncertainty mirrored in her amber eyes. The previous trials tested mind, movement, and perspective, she explained as he sat opposite her. The trial of touch examines whether two beings can truly connect beyond words or thoughts, whether their energies naturally harmonize or conflict. Between them lay two crystal orbs, one pulsing with soft purple light, the other clear and still. These unity stones respond to our combined essence, Nira continued. If both glow in harmony by the end of the ritual, we pass. If not, she left the consequences unspoken. What do we need to do? Mason asked. First, we connect physically. She extended her hands. Then, emotionally and spiritually. As their hands joined, the now familiar warmth flooded between them, stronger than ever before. The clear orb began to shimmer faintly. Now we must synchronize our breathing, Nira instructed, her voice soft. And then, we allow ourselves to be fully present with each other. They breathed together, their rhythms naturally aligning after days of practicing the harmony trials. The chamber's walls lightened, shifting to a serene blue-violet as minutes passed in connected silence. The final step, Nira whispered, requires absolute trust. We must share our deepest fears about this union. Mason swallowed hard. You go first. Nira closed her eyes, her purple fingers tightening slightly around his. I fear that I am betraying my people by embracing this connection with you, that I am weakening centuries of tradition that protected us. Her voice trembled slightly. And yet, I fear even more that I would have never known this feeling had you not stumbled into my garden. The purple orb pulsed brighter as she spoke, its light harmonizing with the now glowing clear orb. Mason took a deep breath. I fear that I'm not worthy of this connection, he admitted, that my human understanding is too limited to honor the depth of your traditions. But what terrifies me most, he paused, gathering courage, is the thought that once the union is complete, what began as obligation might fade, and I would lose this unexpected gift we've found. As his words filled the chamber, both orbs flared brilliantly, their lights merging into a singular radiant glow that bathed them in warmth. The chamber walls responded with a cascade of colors never before seen in a trial ceremony. Nira gasped. Mason. The stones. Before she could explain the significance, the chamber door slid open. Elder Vox, the eldest member of the High Council, entered with ceremonial attendance. His ancient eyes widened at the display before him. In 900 years, he said slowly, I have witnessed only 2 other trials with such a response from the Unity Stones. He approached them, examining the merged light with wonder. Perhaps there is wisdom in the universe beyond our understanding. Nira and Mason reluctantly separated their hands, the orbs maintaining their unified glow even as they did so. The final trial is past, Elder Vox declared formally. You may proceed to the union ceremony at the next lunar alignment. He turned to leave, then paused. Ambassador Nira, your situation has created quite the debate in council chambers. Not all are pleased with this outcome. After the elder departed, Nira embraced Mason impulsively, a rare public display of affection for a Zephyrian. We did it, she whispered against his shoulder. What happens now? Mason asked, still holding her. We have 3 days until the ceremony. Her expression grew serious, but Vox's warning confirms my fears. Tavik's faction won't accept this easily. That evening, as they walked through the luminescent gardens discussing ceremony preparations, a diplomatic aide rushed to Nira's side with urgent news. Her expression darkened as she received the message. Tavik has formally challenged our union's legitimacy, she explained to Mason after the aide departed. He's invoked an ancient clause allowing the council to nullify unions deemed detrimental to Zephyrian cultural integrity. They meet to vote tomorrow. Can they actually stop the ceremony? Mason asked. Technically, yes. It's never been done for a past trial, but these are unprecedented circumstances. Nira's voice hardened. Tavik has been opposed to expanded diplomatic relations with Earth from the beginning. This is as much about politics as tradition. Then we'll face it together, Mason said firmly. The council chamber the next day was imposing, tiers of crystalline seats arranged in a perfect circle, filled with the 21 most powerful Zephyrians. Nira and Mason stood at the center, formally presented as union-bound. Tavik rose to speak. Esteemed council, while the trials have been technically completed, we must consider the greater implications. Our sacred traditions were established to protect Zephyrian cultural purity, not to facilitate cross-species unions. Murmurs spread through the chamber as he continued. The human cannot possibly understand or honor the spiritual depth of our ways. I move to invoke the protection clause and nullify this union before it undermines the very fabric of our society. Several council members nodded in agreement. Elder Vox, however, remained still, observing Mason with ancient, knowing eyes. When invited to respond, Nira spoke with dignified passion. The traditions you seek to protect were created not for isolation, but for meaningful connection. Our ancestors established the solitude and union rituals to ensure that bonds formed between souls were based on genuine recognition, not superficial attraction. She gestured to the chamber around them. If our traditions cannot encompass growth and new understanding, then they become not protection but prison. Her words divided the council, creating visible tension. When Mason was offered the chance to speak, he approached the matter differently. I came to Zephyria as an anthropologist, seeking to understand, he began. What I've learned through the trials goes beyond academic knowledge. I've experienced firsthand why these traditions matter, how they create authentic connection through vulnerability and trust. He looked directly at Tavik. If your concern is cultural dilution, consider that understanding doesn't erode tradition, it strengthens it. Every day I spend learning Zephyrian ways deepens my respect for them, not diminishes it. Elder Vox finally spoke. Perhaps the question before us is not whether traditions can include outsiders, but whether we have forgotten their true purpose. His ancient voice commanded attention. The Unity Stones responded to these two with unprecedented clarity. Would we presume to override such a sign? The council deliberated for hours while Nira and Mason waited in an antechamber, their hands occasionally brushing together for reassurance. When they were finally recalled, tension filled the air. By the narrowest margin, announced the head counselor, the challenge has been rejected. The union may proceed as tradition dictates. Relief washed over them, though Tavik's faction's disapproving glares made it clear the battle wasn't truly over. As they left the council chambers, Nira pulled Mason into a secluded alcove. There's something I need to tell you, she said urgently, something I've never shared with any non-Zephyrian. She explained that the union ceremony contained elements not recorded in any official texts, sacred knowledge passed only between bonded pairs. Once we complete the ceremony, we will be connected in ways that transcend physical proximity. The ancient texts call it soul tethering. It's not merely symbolic. Are you saying the ceremony creates some kind of actual psychic bond? Mason asked, scientific curiosity mingling with wonder. We don't use those terms, but essentially yes. Nira's expression was solemn. I needed you to know before we proceed. This isn't just a diplomatic solution or even a traditional marriage. It's permanent in ways humans might not comprehend. Instead of hesitation, Nira saw certainty spread across Mason's face. If I've learned anything these past days, it's that some connections defy rational explanation. He took her hands in his. I'm not afraid of being connected to you, Nira. The vulnerability in her amber eyes gave way to something deeper as she leaned forward, initiating their first kiss. a profound violation of pre-union protocol that neither could bring themselves to regret. Celestial union dawn broke over New Zephyria, with unprecedented brilliance on the day of the union ceremony. The twin moons, though fading with morning light, remained visible in perfect alignment, a celestial blessing considered rare and auspicious. In separate preparation chambers, Nira and Mason underwent the traditional purification rituals. As attendants draped Nira in shimmering fabrics that complemented her violet skin, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had led to this moment, from outrage at a privacy violation to profound connection with someone from another world. Meanwhile, Mason was guided through ancient Zephyrian practices by Elder Vox himself, an honor typically reserved for the highest-ranking families. The Elder had taken personal interest in this unprecedented union, providing insights no outsider had ever received. The soul tethering you will experience today has existed since our earliest days, Vox explained as he applied ceremonial markings to Mason's forehead. Before technology, before interstellar travel, Zephyrians recognized that true connection transcends physical form. Is it true that bonded pairs can sense each other's emotions across distances? Mason asked, recalling fragments of information from his research. The Elder smiled cryptically. The tethering manifests differently for each pair. Some share dreams, others thoughts, still others emotions. What you and Ambassador Nira will share, he paused, studying Mason's face, I suspect will be quite remarkable, given what the Unity Stones revealed. When preparations were complete, Mason was led to the ancient Union grounds, an open-air sanctuary atop the highest crystal spire in the city. A small gathering of witnesses had assembled, including both supporters and skeptics. Tavik stood rigidly among the latter, his disapproval evident despite the ceremonial occasion. A collective murmur rose as Nira appeared. Her ceremonial attire caught the morning light, creating a halo effect around her purple form. Traditional Union garments had been subtly modified to incorporate elements of Earth design, a statement of cultural bridging that wasn't lost on the assembled dignitaries. As they took their positions at the center of the ancient stone circle, the ritual commenced with Elder Vox guiding them through the preliminary invocations. Crystal vessels containing elements from both Earth and Zephyria were presented. Water from Earth's oceans, soil from Zephyria's sacred mountains, fire kindled from both world sources, and air captured from both atmospheres. These elements represent the foundations of life on our respective worlds, Vox intoned. Though formed in distant systems around different stars, they combine in harmony, as must those who seek union. The assembled witnesses participated in ceremonial responses, their voices creating harmonic patterns that resonated with the crystal architecture around them. Even Tavik, bound by tradition, added his voice to the ancient words. When the elemental rituals concluded, Vox presented the soul-tethering cords, iridescent strands created from rare materials found only in Zephyria's deepest crystal caves. These he wrapped around Nira and Mason's joined hands. What begins in accident can culminate in destiny, Vox proclaimed. The universe rarely makes mistakes in its grand design. The most sacred part of the ceremony required Nira and Mason to speak private vows that only they could hear, whispered intimacies that would form the foundation of their tethered bond. As they leaned close to share these promises, the cords around their hands began to glow with internal light. I vow to honor the bridge we've built between worlds, Mason whispered. To cherish the connection that found us against all odds, and to stand beside you through whatever challenges our union brings. Nira's eyes glistened as she responded, I vow to embrace growth without fearing change, to find strength in our differences, and to remember always that tradition finds its highest purpose when it creates bonds of understanding. As their whispered vows completed, the cords between their hands dissolved into luminescent particles that seemed to absorb into their skin. A gentle warmth spread through their bodies, followed by an extraordinary sensation, a subtle awareness of each other's presence that transcended physical touch. The witnesses gasped as an unexpected phenomenon manifested above the ceremony. The morning sky, usually tinted purple by Zephyria's sun, displayed a perfect rainbow, an Earth phenomenon never before seen on this world. Scientific impossibility met ceremonial magic in a display that silenced even the most skeptical observers. The union is complete, Elder Vox announced, his ancient voice carrying unexpected emotion. What the cosmos has joined. Let no being separate. As tradition dictated, the newly bonded pair turned to face the witnesses. The formal reception line would require them to accept acknowledgement from each attendee, beginning with the highest-ranking officials. Tavik approached first, protocol requiring his participation despite his opposition. His formal words of recognition were technically perfect but delivered without warmth. As he completed the ritual phrase, he added quietly, "You have won this battle, Ambassador, but some traditions cannot accommodate such an expansion. There will be consequences." Before Nira could respond, Mason felt a surge of protective indignation through their new bond. He found himself speaking with unexpected authority. "Counselor Tavik, Zephyrian history is filled with moments where tradition evolved to meet new realities. Perhaps this is simply the next such moment." Tavik's expression hardened before he moved on, allowing more supportive witnesses to offer their genuine congratulations. Throughout the reception, Nira and Mason remained physically connected, a necessity during the first hours of soul tethering to stabilize the bond. As the ceremonial proceedings concluded, they were escorted to the traditional bonding chamber where newly united pairs spent their first day experiencing the developing connection. The chamber's privacy shields activated as they entered, finally allowing them a moment alone. "Can you feel it?" Nira asked softly, referring to the nascent bond between them. Mason nodded, struggling to articulate the sensation. "It's like hearing a melody I've always known but never actually heard before, a presence that feels both new and somehow familiar." Nira smiled, guiding him to the meditation cushions at the chamber's center. "The bond will strengthen over the coming days. We'll learn to navigate it together." She hesitated before adding, "No human has ever experienced this before. Are you afraid?" "Not of the bond," Mason replied honestly. "But Tavik's warning concerns me." What consequences was he suggesting? Nira's expression grew serious. "Political ones, most likely. The conservative faction may push for restrictions on future diplomatic exchanges. They fear this union sets a precedent." "Does it?" Mason asked. "I hope so," Nira replied with surprising conviction. "Not because I wish to undermine our traditions, but because I believe they're strong enough to encompass growth." She touched his face gently. "What we've discovered together proves that connection transcends planetary origins." Through their developing bond, Mason sensed her sincerity along with lingering concerns. "There's something else worrying you." Nira nodded, impressed by his perception. "My diplomatic assignment on Earth was scheduled to begin next month. Given our circumstances, the Council might reassign me. Traditional wisdom suggests newly bonded pairs shouldn't be separated across interstellar distances during the first cycle." "Then I'll go with you," Mason said immediately. "My research could continue on Earth, documenting the first human Zephyrian bonded experience." His expression turned thoughtful. "Actually, our situation offers unprecedented research opportunities for both worlds." "A living case study in cross-cultural connection?" Nira asked with amused affection. "Exactly," Mason replied, warming to the idea. "We could establish a joint cultural exchange program, using our experience to help others navigate differences." As they discussed possibilities, the bond between them continued to develop, occasionally surprising them with flashes of shared emotion or synchronized thoughts. By evening, they had drafted a proposal to present to both the Zephyrian Council and Earth's diplomatic corps, a blueprint for expanded cultural exchange built upon their unique circumstances. 3 days later, they stood together on the observation deck of the interstellar transport that would carry them to Earth. Behind them, New Zephyria's crystal spires caught the light of the setting purple sun. Ahead lay uncertainty, opportunity, and the challenge of introducing their unprecedented union to Mason's world. "Are you ready?" Mason asked, feeling Nira's mixture of excitement and apprehension through their bond. She took his hand, her purple fingers intertwining with his. "For generations, my people believed that seeing someone in their most vulnerable state created an unbreakable connection." Her amber eyes met his. "What began as accident became choice, and now we write our own tradition." Mason finished her thought, something that happened with increasing frequency as their bond strengthened. As the transport prepared for departure, they stood together at the threshold between worlds. Not merely ambassador and anthropologist, not simply Zephyrian and human, but pioneers of a connection that promised to bridge more than just the space between two beings. Through their bond, they shared a moment of perfect understanding. Some traditions were worth preserving precisely because they created space for new possibilities, even those that began with an ACC.